I was the first one to report, I did it on Twitter, that Rekkles was basically going to be kicked out of G2 / sold, that they didn't want him anymore. Now, that might not seem the case because there were certain people tried to dispute that or claim that they knew like what I was talking about or what the situation was. It wasn't quite that way. It hadn't been decided. It was decided all those months back, ages ago, because I had ironclad sources, because I'm not some fucking Twitter egg, am I? I'm not some anonymous nobody. I put my reputation on the line. And you know what? When I tell you Jat's been an arsehole in Team Liquid, and I tell you Rekkles is a fucking diva, and I tell you Rekkles is getting kicked from G2, and I tell you what fucking they're doing inside TSM, it's because I know what I'm talking about. I not only could speculate and guess, not only have been in the industry long enough to know the way people do it, I've got a fucking source network like you don't even understand. Let's be real. Everyone's going to ignore this and retcon it in history. Like, I always wondered if it'd work if he was in... No. When he was announced as signing to G2, coupled with Perks' going out of Europe, everyone in the scene pretty much said, this is unfair. G2, it's absolutely a fault. Like, it's obvious they're going to win the league. Like, they're going to win probably both splits in dominant fashion. Maybe no one can even come close to them. They've actually ruined European and Western League of Legends because nobody's going to be able to compete. Nobody has the star power and nobody can even have Perks and build a super team around. So it's already game over. Fuck it. You may as well just give them the trophy already, guys. And you know what? None of it happened, did it? Let's be real. Like, even though everyone was mad at G2, and they said, it's making Fnatic so much weaker. Fnatic actually ended up overall, I'd say, having a better year. Obviously, they led to Worlds. They were in the fucking finals once. G2 was never in a final. But everyone said, this makes G2 a super team. Like, this is impossible to beat. By the way, a great explanation again, an example, rather, of why super teams don't work and why teams with technically worse players on paper tend to be better. Before everyone goes, no, but the Perks team was a super team. Perks at ADC cannot be a super team if he had never played ADC. Use your fucking brain. So G2 supposedly was going to win easily, go to Worlds, do it all. Well, what actually happened then? Let's go to where we actually are. What happened? Well, he was the MVP in spring, so apparently everyone in the league co-signed it, the players, the fans, everyone thought, it's working out in spring. Problem is, team didn't make a single LEC final. By the way, they were in all the LEC finals before then. They didn't go to Worlds. They were going to Worlds every year and going to semis at least. And no LEC or LCS team by the end of off-season wanted to actually sign Rekkles. So you've gone from the absolute most ridiculous, like crazy exaggerated expectations to almost rock bottom. You got nothing you wanted except Rekkles was the MVP of one split, was a contender in the summer. And so in terms of, like, I guess, critical acclaim or respect of your peers at your position, he delivered. But aside from that, this was terrible for both parties.
In terms of just the aesthetic, he's a good-looking guy. He's got a lot of fangirls as a result. He's a guy who, very good, what you'd call like a clean-cut image if you were in the West. He has a great on-camera personality. He comes across as like humble but confident. He doesn't seem cocky. Seems like a likable figure. As a result, he's got a huge personal fan base. Fnatic as a team always had a bigger fan base, but it seems like his fan base extends beyond that, because before he was definitely in Fnatic, during that AMA period, people were very hyped around him. It feels like some Fnatic fans have left and gone over with him to Alliance. There's a lot of people want to see him do well and think that he can do well. It's got, seemingly, when you go down like that, everything's going for him. And yet, I don't think I'm being unfair if I say that to me. When I read other people's opinions of Rekkles and I see how he's built, in line with all these factors here, I think he might be the most overrated player in the entire world. Definitely in the West. So overall, when you look at it, again, you look through this whole history, and there isn't really these periods where he's absolutely the best player, like dominating the game impact, incredible player. That tournament, you'll never forget how he took the whole tournament over. It's not really there in his history. But the reason why I reference a lot of the context here is also because I want to make the point that this isn't that old stereotype we've been sold of the Western young player of like, he hasn't been blooded yet and he has to get some experience under his belt, and he's a bit nervous going to big lands. So once he gets that out of his way, a bit like people like Bjergsen had initially, that's not the case for Rekkles. Who Rekkles is now is a product of a lot of tournaments, a lot of play, a lot of thought and improvement and going in different teams. And he's actually the finished product at this point. Now, he can still progress. He can still change his mentality. He can still develop as a player and find his role and exert himself and say, I want to learn new things. That's all totally the case. But you shouldn't assume it will happen just on the basis that he's young or that he's still relatively new in the scene, because he's really not in those senses. In game terms, this guy's a veteran now, actually. He's got years under his belt. He's gone to many tournaments. He's gone to way more international tournaments than nearly any other Western player that's currently active. If you think about this context for him, that's why you have to be able to criticize Rekkles, because people are not only calling him the best European player, they're calling him the best Western player. And not only that, they're going beyond that. Like, when people talk about Froggen or they talk about Bjergsen, they say like, oh, they're the best Western mids, or they're the best in the West even. But then they'll always be like, of course, they could never compete with Faker. And, Cool maybe would get them, and Pawn, when they see like, oh, I'm sure Pawn would kill him as on Dade, he's incredible in OGN. And they don't really suggest that these players could truly compete. They could have a good game, but they wouldn't truly compete. People talked about Rekkles coming into Worlds for real as if he was going to be right there with Uzi, right there with Name, with Imp, with Deft, and that he would either compete with or he would just beat these guys, and he really could, and it was capable that he could do it. And okay, maybe his bot lane wouldn't be as strong as one or two of these bot lanes, but he personally could be up there, and he could give the same performance in the tournament as those players could and would, which, I mean, that was a bit of unrealistic when you look back now. And so that's part of the reason why we have to have this context for him, because people aren't just putting him up as a good player or one of the best or a great, they're putting him as potentially the best, and they're putting him on the level of these players who are super carries for their teams.
You view Rekkles as a rival of yours, right? You compare yourself against him, or you want to be better than him?
I wanted to destroy him, definitely.
Yeah, understandably.
I want to be seen as that. How I see myself, I would love that everyone can see me like that. But
was it tough in these years then, when like it felt like you didn't have the team to do it? Because fans are obviously just going to look and go, well, he's in the final, and you're not. Like, it's going to be easy for them. Then, like, I always say it like this, like, yeah, well, go ahead. What do you think? What do you think this topic?
Yeah. Totally, but it was not tough necessarily because he was the one winning. Anyone who was winning and I wasn't, I felt a certain level of, drive to make myself become the person that is holding the trophy at the end of the split. And he was just a guy that was very successful, and I was, of course, I wished I was in these teams and was having that success, because I felt like, and I still feel like I deserved that, because I put so much effort into it and I really tried to perfect my craft. But in the end, what you deserve or what you don't deserve, it doesn't really matter. It's just life takes its way, and you have to try to just do the best out of the circumstances that you have. And I try to not compare myself so much anymore. I try to not care as much as what other people think of me, but it's definitely something more difficult for me, because my instinct is instantly, no, that I want to show them that, no, that's not true. If I was in that situation, you really think I would do worse? Or if he was in my situation, you really think, with all I know about myself and what I've heard about him, how he impacts the team, that he would make a better situation out of this team? But I also was looking to what can I learn from him, from his game.
Oh, what I love about this off-season, dude, the way this is scripted, you'd almost think I actually was the one, like the fucking one, like writing the simulation code or something. Because the idea that simultaneously they think they can bully fucking like Carlos into giving them perks, and then they believe the Fnatic org that they're getting fucking like that. Well, we're obviously keeping Rekkles, right? And then Rekkles apparently even did do like what I've just said perks should never do, which is go back on his word. He told Fnatic, yeah, I'm probably going to sign, and then basically just said like, nah, fuck it, actually I'm going. And so the best thing is Carlos even got him for again. Dude, he's taken your two best players as free agents. He's not even paying a transfer fee, you fucking clowns. Like, probably the stupidest thing in my opinion was the way they handled the whole Rekkles situation, because the other thing is this, I know not much of this will ever come out in public unless like 5 years down the line I can make like the documentary I've always been threatening I'll make if the people agree to sign on the line, which is basically, as far as I know, even sometimes from Fnatic players, I'll say, Rekkles a bunch of times basically pulled like it's him or me type ultimatums, and there's a reason why. Caps, Youngbuck.
Yeah.
I mean, the only one that was good was maybe if he's the one that got rid of Brock, so fair play, Rekkles. I'll give you points for that one. Well done, mate. But like, if the idea that you're going to let people like Caps, Youngbuck go, like, mate, you'll never have people as good as this in your org ever again. Never again. Not in the history of esports. Unless something incredible happens with the investment, or someone like some like fucking billionaire buys the it ain't happening. Like, so the idea you do all that for this guy, The results are even there, where by his logic, if he really believed in the teams and the players that they're bringing in, then he should be like, right, we're just one move away, right? You know, we're not far from getting to where we want to be. And then he leaves as well. Then it was all for naught, wasn't it? You never got any championships out of it. The best you had was like some top 8s at Worlds and some second places. Like, was that worth tossing aside the best mid laner maybe ever to play in the West? A coach that has like ludicrous intangibles, maybe isn't the best X's and O's coach. We've also found if you have good enough talent in Europe, it ain't about fucking coaching with X's and O's anyway. Like, Grabs isn't doing that. So to me, they've so misplayed their hand on that one. On the Rekkles side of things, first of all, this is like fucking the richest cream in the world for me. I can barely eat enough of it because he's just a disloyal little bitch. Like, he literally has been proven to be that. It's unreal. And on top of that, he doesn't believe in any of his teammates. All those people he's playing with, it was nonsense because guess what? He was one of the problems the last few years. I will say it's crazy because one thing I'll give him positive for is he played pretty fucking good during the time that they had all these problems. Somehow it didn't affect his game, which I'll say props.
Getting him to play something like Varus or Ashe was very difficult because he needed to have A, the trust in his teammates to keep him safe, and B, the trust in himself to carry the games. And usually he didn't have that, and he just said, Joey, listen, I might be a good Varus, but I don't know if I can carry the game. Just pick me Tristana, even if it's a losing matchup, I'll carry the game. So in a sense, he limited himself. At times, I didn't like it at all because there were metas where champions, like especially Varus, I think in 2018 was extremely broken for a while. Kog'Maw had showed his face for a while as well, but again, didn't have a dash, so he didn't want to play them. But you know, in the end, if you do draft him as champions, he stuck to his word and he carried the game. So you kind of knew what you were working with, even if it was limited at times.
And Rekkles came from a team where, since he is so good at his positioning, if you play for him, he's almost impossible to kill. And if he farms up, he will do a lot of damage. But now he has 4 teammates who want to dive in. They don't want to or have a hard time playing around you because this was not how you played 3 years in a row. So that was just a mismatch in-game.
Yes.
And of course, Rekkles was the piece where it happened, the break happened, but you can't blame him as the player, right?
No, that's actually something I wanted to make a point of, actually, which is, remember, he did win the fucking Spring Split MVP. Like, that means he was voted on by his peers and the media and everyone. They said he was the best player. So obviously at ADC, he was a very good ADC. The problem is, when you look back now, and this is only in hindsight, I could say this, I thought this team would win everything as well. The part that doesn't make that much sense is, he is essentially like the very prototypical ADC of like, just leave me in lane, I farm up, I get to the team fight, then as you say, you peel for me and I'll do all the damage within the damage cone and I won't let myself die, I'll do a really good job. But the problem is your team was like the LPL team. It was like we're all fighting and skirmishing and everyone's going in. It's like it's not the style where it's not an Uzi I team. Yeah. G2 wasn't an Uzi I team.
And this is also good context for the people who always talk about what this team wanted Carzzy. Carzzy is why Carzzy? He played so bad because he's one of the new school AD carries, let's say, right? Who will find ways to be useful himself without needing this attention.
Right.
Where again, it's not a judgment about what's better. It's just that most teammates prefer to have an AD carry who's more able to play for himself and not be like needed to be catered to, sorry. That's why people like Carzzy, because he is that kind of guy who, even on Atheos, will flank himself if he needs to, right? He doesn't care.
Let's be real. For Rekkles left, I'm going to just speculate here, because he doesn't think they can win, because he thinks G2 would still beat them. So he doesn't want to get beaten by G2. He wants to be in G2 beating Fnatic. Let me just do a thought exercise for you, right? If instead Rekkles had stayed and he'd have come out on his stream and said, well, the reason why I re-signed with Fnatic, which I promised to do, by the way, because I'm a rat, is because I actually believe we have the team that can beat G2. I believe we're better than G2. I think you're going to see some of our players are better this split. Without perks, they're not going to be as good. If he'd have said that, would you as a Fnatic fan have believed him and thought, wow, this is going to get me really hyped? Of course you would. So apply the same thought exercise and believe what his actions tell you now, which is he doesn't believe Fnatic can truly compete in that sense. They might be able to in the server if everything goes right, which has been the story the last few years, hasn't it, since Caps left. They say no man is an island. We all need people who've got our back, and supporting me and the content on my channel are the following people: Matt Pugnatio Rajcula, The Concept, Animosity, Banediesel, Ben Glass, Jasun, Jensen Goh, Tosh, Toucan, and you know it. Always a special thanks goes up to my main man, Jerky's Minion. Do you want to ask a question for my video AMA? Do you want to take part in one of those lengthy discussions where I talk about whatever topics are on your mind? Do you want teasers, find out who the upcoming guests are, or maybe even to suggest a guest or a topic for my content? If any of those perks or others catch your fancy, well, put your money where your mouth is and join the Skrill Illuminati today, where? In the Patreon link in the description box below.